Before we get into this episode, a quick message from the Emotional Wellness Initiatives.
The Emotional Wellness Initiatives have a special offer for Father's Day for all dads and soon to be dads.
They're offering 10 spots of 30 minutes therapy calls with their psychologists on a first come, first served basis for free.
For more details, check our Instagram account or the episode show notes.
Pops in a pod. Pops in a pod.
Hey guys, Nadir Pop here.
And Peter Pop.
Just in the last episode, Peter did mention that we never got an author, right? A male author who's written a book on fatherhood. Well, guess what? We've got Saheb Sahani, the author of Notes of a Fatherosaur. It's very interesting that we finally found somebody who's written a book exclusively on fatherhood, Peter.
Yeah, I thought Nadir, you and I would be the first ones who had to do it. But I'm glad Saheb beat us to it so that we could get him on the podcast.
I completely agree. Imagine trying to transcribe 125 episodes into a book. I'm not willing to put in that kind of time or effort, at least now.
If any publishers are listening to this, we are all ears.
But right now, it's all about Saheb Sahani and his book, and what a lovely, lovely conversation we had with him. So he is not just the author of the book, but he is a professional. He's been associated with SBI Life Insurance, and currently he's a marketing head of a very interesting sustainable shoe company called Neiman's.
You know, one good thing about speaking to an author is there's so much material already in the book itself, and I think Sahib's book is targeted towards first-time dads. So we highly recommend all of you who are going to be dads or just recent dads, definitely pick up a copy of the book. There's a lot more, and if you're wondering why, well, let's jump straight into our chat with Saheb then.
Hi Saheb, welcome to Popsinapod.
Hey Nadir, hey Peter, nice to be here.
It was so nice to actually get somebody like you, because I think it's the most opportune time. You've recently published your book, and obviously we sort of go way back with our agency connections as well. So it's finally nice to have you here, and we're having a conversation that has nothing to do with work. So I'm really glad we finally got to do this.
Same here. I mean, happy to finally connect outside of work and talk about a subject that really connects us both. I've been following your journey as an actor, as an anchor. You've done some work, for my ex company as well. So I followed you over there. Absolute great work with what you guys are building with popsinapod, and great stuff. I mean, kudos to both you and Peter for talking about a subject that is not talked about often, and bringing it to the forefront for everyone to sort of consume and to listen in and to hear from different experts on the subject of fatherhood. I think it's fabulous what you guys are doing.
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. In fact, Peter and I, keep talking about this practically every episode, right? That dads don't have material to go by. Right. So when mom's expecting, exactly where to go, what to expect when you're expecting, and there's so much source material that you can refer to. And finally, here we are, right? I mean, we've got Notes of a Fatherosaur by Saheb Sahani. I mean, no pressure, right? No pressure. I mean, your book will play a very big role one day for the future fathers, it seems.
I hope my book reaches out to the right audience and reaches out to the people it's actually meant for, which is first-time fathers or parents in general, right? And the moment you said Notes of a Fatherosaur, it sort of gave me immense pressure to sort of live up to that name. And when you say that it's going to be talked about for a lot of time, and it's going to be talked about in the years to come, it puts a lot of pressure on me, but that's good pressure to have. So which means that the book probably has potential to probably get to a place where it's a must-have on any on any parent's bookshelf, and that would be a dream. And that's it. That's the dream, right? To be able to talk about parenting, to be able to talk about fatherhood, and to be able to reach out to first-time parents and first-time fathers who are in the need, to be able to read something like this that they haven't read about. People have been wanting to read stuff on the kind of journey that the first time father can have, and they haven't really had the resources to tap into. And I'm glad that I've written on that subject to be able to help them out in whatever capacity that they choose to read.
There's lots to talk about. So let's set some context for our listeners, right? And let's start with the very basic and simple question is, for those who haven't read your book as yet, could you just like enlighten them on what a Fatherosaur is?
So it's a very interesting terminology that I've sort of coined on my own. And, this started with the whole journey of, fatherhood that I had back in 2017 when I became a father to a beautiful daughter. And I really looked around to understand how to go about this, right? Because when I spoke to my father, he had his own template to fatherhood. When I spoke to a couple of friends of mine, they practically said the same thing that my father did, and I realized that there is a massive age gap. With my father who's been doing this for quite some time, and then my friends who just recently become fathers, right? And they practically spoke the same thing. And imagine the generation gap that they had, and they practically spoke and gave me the same tips and lessons that my father did. And I realized that there is something really wrong over here, right? I mean, this can't be true because I was expecting some new age tips to come about, right? And I was not getting them. I was getting the same goddamn old tips and lessons that I got from my father. Not to say that they are wrong, or not to say that they're not wise enough, but they are not just cut out for me in 2017, right? When I became a father, it was just not on. And I was really looking at ways to sort of understand what to really expect, from this journey. I mean, am I going to be under pressure when I'm going to change my baby's diaper for the first time? What do I expect when I change my baby's diaper for the first time? Is it really tough as people have said it to be, or is it really that big a thing that people have made it out to be, right? What to expect when I'm going to take my kid for the first vaccination. I mean, am I going to expect a lot of hue and cry around it? Am I going to be, ridden by emotions, when I see, that first prick happening and the child crying? Am I going to be overtaken by emotion? So these are the questions that are popping up in my head, and I realized no one had answers to it, right? Probably because as a father, no one's spoken to you about it, or as co-partners, in your marriage, etc. Has your partner ever spoken to you about it? And I spoke about this with a lot of my friends who had become fathers at that point in time, and I realized that they've not had an open conversation on this subject ever, right? And they've not had an open conversation on this subject with their immediate friends, family circles, or even their very close family members. They've not had this discussion ever. It's meant to be an open discussion. It's meant to be an open conversation. But for some reason, they've not had it, right? And that got me thinking about, have we as fathers stopped evolving in the process of parenting? Are we still stuck in that age-old template, that's been passed on to us from generations after generations? Are we still hanging on to that template, thinking this is what fatherhood is meant to be? Like, I'm supposed to go to work, earn the money, come back home, spend time with my kids, sleep, and then again go back to work and just spend time over the weekend. Is that how I'm supposed to be as a father? And to me, in my head, the answer was a clear no, right? And I said, you know what? Let me just start documenting this whole journey, about being a father, about who I am as a person in this fatherhood journey, finding myself as a father in this fatherhood journey, and then make it available as notes for people to consume it later, right? And that's where the term Fatherosaur sort of kicked in, because then I realized that this is practically, because when I became a father and people passed on the same tips and lessons to me, I realized that we are all stuck in that age of parenting and we've not evolved from there, right? And that got me to thinking, are we the dinosaurs in the parenting world? Us fathers, are we the dinosaurs in the parenting world? And that's when it sort of hit me that maybe we are Fatherosaurs. And I mean, I have absolutely no regrets in calling myself a Fatherosaur, because I'm still evolving in the parenting process, right? And there's still a long way to go. My daughter is just 4.5 years old now. I'm still learning on the job, and I will still evolve, right? And that's a good space to be in. But to realize that you are going to evolve in this parenting journey, and to realize that there are shortcomings in whatever it is that you've done so far, and there's still a lot to learn. I think that's what keeps me going. And I think I'll be a father also for a couple of years from now as well. But I'm hoping that title will change someday, right?
No, and it's very interesting that you brought that up, Saheb, because this is something that people experience once. Like, you become a father once, right? The title. I don't mean that you have a second and a third child and you become a father again or anything. You become a father, you're a father. That's it. You can't magically say, oh, now I'm not a father for my first kid, the second kid I'll become a new father, right? It doesn't work like that. And when you spoke about the whole chronicling process, it took me back to my days where I started doing that. I started blogging. I started writing a lot. And then Peter came along and he said, listen, why are you writing this? Let's talk about it. I think when you talk about it, there's so much more emotion attached to it. And, here we are today with, over 120 episodes of Pops in a Pod. And it took me back there simply because I didn't want to write stuff and say, okay, oh, look at me, I'm such a great dad. Right? No, that's not the point. The point is, I don't want to forget these moments, right? These first things. And that is very nice. And that's when we were reading all your notes, right? We realized that, oh my God, like these are the milestones that every father hits, every father kind of goes through. And it's so memorable. But I just want to take you to a very different side of things, right? See, you're a marketer by profession. So you understand that there are different audiences in the city. There are different audiences outside the city, in the hinterlands of the country and all. Do you see, at least now from a very new perspective, that change is coming when it comes to parenting, and your book would probably reach that audience as well and get them to realize that, oh yeah, you know what, this is something that I must do as a dad?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question. I mean, I'll try and put on my marketer's hat to first answer that question of demographics and geographies, right? This, and I'll quote my own example. I'll quote an example of what I've been doing on LinkedIn for now, right? Now, the minute I became a father, instantly that job title and designation stopped being a matter of concern for me, right? Now I'd become a father first and a professional later, right? So the first thing that I did was change my LinkedIn bio description to father, right? That's now my full-time job. What I do outside of it is secondary, right? And then I thought maybe I was, being crazy enough to do that on a professional platform. And then I realized that I was not alone, right? There were people from all walks of life on that platform doing exactly, what I was doing, but in a very subtle manner. I was just being very open about it. They were doing it in a subtle fashion, but it was still noticeable. I noticed because that's what I do as a marketer. I try and hunt for topics on platforms and try and see if there are conversations happening that are meaningful. Can I tap into those conversations? Can I join those conversations? Right? And I started doing my own bit of research, and I understood that people are talking about it. They're gradually talking about it. They're not there yet in terms of scaling up the conversations on fatherhood and first-time parenting, but they're slowly and gradually getting there, right? And that gave me hope, right? And I think the subject of fatherhood is such that it cuts across all geographies and demographics, right? And very interestingly, when I was writing my book, my core target audience, yes, was definitely men, right? But a large part of the target audience also is women, because I want women to sort of look at the book and look at their spouses and then tell them, read this, right? I have read it, and it's a journey that you should also sort of take up. If you haven't read a book, doesn't matter, but read this because you are a father, and you'll probably need to read this in more details to understand the kind of journey that some other father has had, and it's your journey too that you haven't spoken about too much, right? And for that very reason, I've not tried to, and I will never try and market this as a book. And which is why the title of the book is also such that I've referred to it as notes. And you guys have read the book, and you will realize the language that I've used in the book is simple. It's very uncomplicated. It's raw. It's unfiltered completely, at its heart. And that's the very reason I've kept it like that, because I wanted to connect with fathers beyond just metro cities and tier 1 cities. If someone is going to pick up, that piece of work of mine, I want them to sort of relate to it in pure, simple terms without any jargons attached to it. And that's where I see this entire piece of work going beyond just metro and tier 1 cities.
And what I really enjoyed about it is you didn't really stop from calling a spade, right? Like a lot of times, and we were talking about it before we started recording, right? Is that, and I'm going to quote a guest of ours who's also been there in this month, where he said that, literally when you look at statistics, right? We're doing this podcast, we're on recording this on the internet, where literally, if you think about it statistically, 1% of the population of India, right? Literally. And it's very nice for us to just like pat each other on the back. We're good dads, right? And that's what you're talking about. But there's a whole different side of India that doesn't seem like that. But it's like, how do you say? It's like being that big kid in the kiddie pool and saying that, I'm the biggest or I'm the best. And I think that's the trap, unfortunately, I've seen. And Nadir and I, in multiple occasions, have kind of admitted that we've kind of fallen into, right? Kudos to our wives for kind of bringing us down to ground reality. But the reason I'm bringing this up is, if you don't do that, you feel very lonely, right? As an experience where sometimes you're just doing it on your own and not realizing that, hey, there are others who are with me in this journey, or who think like me, right? I mean, like, I have to say that over the last 3 years, Nadir and I have realized we're not the only dads who are, crazy or have these outlandish ideas. We also have found like a community of sorts online. I want to go back, because one of the things is you did start off all of this as a blog post. Was that something that people resonated with and that you heard from people?
I mean, I realized when I was writing this, I mean, you bring up a very valid point and a very beautiful point, that I am doing this as a father. Are there any other fathers out there who are experiencing exactly the same thing that I'm experiencing, feeling exactly what I'm feeling right now? If yes, are we then connected? Through some weird sense of connection, right? I mean, are we connected in real sense as fathers? Even if we are sort of separated by distances, etc. I think we are feeling exactly the same thing. And that was the whole purpose of sort of starting to pen this down in a way that maybe someday when someone reads this, that they sort of realize that, hey, there's someone out there sailing on the same boat as I am. And they've been sailing on that same boat for so long, right? And I've been waiting to read about one such moment from another father so that I could then actively talk about it. And I hope it does, right? I mean, I hope someone who's reading this journey of mine through the notes realizes that we have a lot in common that needs to get spoken about, and that there's a common thread that runs across all fathers in general, and that it needs to be spoken about more. And that's exactly what I was thinking about when I started writing as well. That one day, the hope is that someone picks this up and says that yes, we are all sailing on the same boat. And I spoke of this very I mean, it's now looked at as a cliched sort of a experiment or a cliched sort of a move. So I think if you realize there's one common thread that happens to all of us as fathers the moment our kid is in our hands. We take that one picture that we upload on social media the first time, right? And that is holding the pinky finger, right? And putting it between their fists and taking that one picture. And I've seen that one picture posted by multiple fathers. And this is something that I realized after I became a father in 2017, that every time I saw a picture of a new dad, that was the common picture, right? And people call it cliched, and I myself have called it cliched before I became a father, right? But it's no longer cliched. It's an expression that the dads are putting out on social, right? And you don't know the kind of emotions that person is sort of going through at that very moment, right? And then I realized that emotion is so common to all fathers who are experiencing at that moment when they pull out that picture, and it's like one grand social experiment that brings all fathers together, right? Connects all fathers together. That one picture in the same pose, in the same style, no matter what age you become a father, you will post that. And that, I mean, that was proof of the pudding for me as well, right? When I was writing and when I was researching on the subject as well. And that one picture gave me confidence that yes, I'm probably on the right path, that I shouldn't stop myself from completing whatever it is that I've started to do. And that gave me hope to just complete, the journey that I was on in terms of writing.
It's very sweet because I think at least amongst the all three of us will never forget that day. When you first saw your kid, but referring to your notes, there's this one thing that really struck me, and because you brought it up, that first picture of social media, that first very moment, it takes me back to one bit that I read, which says that something on the lines of that don't promise the sun, the moon, and the stars, right? Just kind of be there first. Don't miss the first things. And that is something that is so ingrained in dads as well, because what you initially said, that they're breadwinners and they're outside and they're working and whatnot, and things need to change from a work standpoint. And that really did resonate with me, because initially for the first 3-4 months, I was lucky enough to be with my daughter. Didn't have a job, so I was there, and I kind of ensured that I saw everything, right? Whatever little that I could. But then I missed a few milestones along the way. You've put that very, beautifully in that one line, that, be there for the rest of the world can sort of
wait, yes.
Whatever, take a hike.
Yeah.
Why didn't you walk us through that? Because when you became a father, right, everything changed for you from an evolutionary standpoint, because you mentioned that before being a father, you were a certain way and you spoke of certain things, and I think all of us did. And then after you became the father, that sense of evolution suddenly hits you, right? It's not like very, very Darwin, that it takes years and years and years. It just suddenly hits you overnight. What was that? What did that evolution feel like, which literally probably might have happened overnight for you?
Yeah, so that actually came from a place, and I think I again spoke of this in the notes itself, where I mentioned that, as fathers, the kind of time off that you get from work in the name of paternity leave, right? It's absolutely ridiculous.
So it took Virat Kohli deciding that he's going to take paternity leave for it to become a national topic. Yeah, we've been all victim to that 1 week, and the problem with that is that at least I felt that way. Nadir and I were working together that time. I went up to Nadir and I was like, dude, we get paternity leave 1 week. So we are kind of made to tell ki, Arey yaar. And then the tale that we're told is, Arey, but you're the father. What do you need to do? 1 week is enough now. And I think that is the problem more than the actual duration.
Yeah, that's the problem. That it's been normalized in a way that it's enough. And not just enough, it's more than enough for you as a father. And that for me was a problem, because after those 5 days of paternity leave, and it just went in a flash, right? You run around from hospital to calling your insurer, to making sure that the insurance kicks in, etc., to making sure that the things are set up at home in just the way that you want it to be, immaculate for your baby to come in, and your wife to come in and sort of just be relaxed. I think those 5 days just go by in a flash, right? Like I said, and post those 5 days, it happened to me. I started thinking about the fact that now I have to go back to work, to drag my sorry ass back to work, and I'm leaving my newborn child behind at home, right? Shouldn't I be there at home rather than be at the workplace? And then again, those societal pressures of, okay, you're the man, you're the father, you got to go back to work, you got to earn the bucks for the family, you got to bring bread to the table, right? All those things started to kick in, right? And I was in a weird place, right? I was kind of lost, because I really wanted to spend time at home, and I would, the whole day I'd work from the moment that I walked in to the moment that I logged out. I would just think about, how can I get back home soon? How can I get back home soon, right? And when it was 6:30, I just didn't give a damn about who was going to call me. If there was work pending, not pending, I would just rush back home, right? And I would try and get home in the fastest time possible if Bombay traffic allowed me to do that, right? And that was the sole intention in that time after paternity leave, to be able to get back home soon to my daughter, right? And that got me thinking about how, as fathers, we get so caught up in that planning process of making sure, okay, that you buy a child insurance plan, making sure that you open a fixed deposit, making sure that you get this, you get that, and there's like an order that you set for yourself that ये करना है, and उसके बाद बाकी सब चीजें देख लेंगे. And in that process, I felt that, am I going to then start missing out on the most important things that my child is going through at that moment? If she's going to turn the first time, I want to be there for that first turn, right? When she laughs for the first time, I want to be there for that first laugh. And that is how I've captured them in the form of notes, right? That us as parents, we put ourselves under too much. I'm not just talking about fathers, I'm talking about mothers in general too, right? We put ourselves under too much pressure to plan for the future so much that we sometimes forget that we need to live in the present as well, right? Live in the present moments, and sort of savor those moments, because those moments will never come again, right? Now imagine taking your kid on the first flight. That's a massive moment, right? To take your kid on the first flight, and you are bothered about how people are going to perceive you as a parent, and as a primary caregiver or secondary caregiver, whatever it is, right? On how you handle the child on the flight. You're so bothered about what others are going to think about, on the flight, that you forget that, it's a child's first time on the flight. You've got to look at her, got to look at how they react to the surroundings, and to be able to be there with them in that moment. But there you're caught up in that moment of, what if she cries? What if she wants to, take a poop? How am I going to manage that? And that got me thinking that, we are so caught up in that whole process of planning that we forget to live in that moment for present.
So this is the right time actually to ask this question, and this is a question that we're asking all the dads that we're featuring this month. I'm going to take this slowly. So here it is. Now, one of the things common, Saheb, among all the dads this month are, not only are they involved dads, but they go beyond just being involved, right? So what I want to know is, what's one thing you would like to say to those who look at you or see you, doing something for your kid and wonder, like, why is that dad doing it, or why is he doing that?
Why shouldn't he? Right? There's no rule written anywhere in the world that a dad isn't meant to do this, right? And I think that's been a problem that's deep rooted in how we are also, told to look at societal norms, or genders, or the fact that there are certain roles designated to a certain person, right? And I think parenting and fatherhood is beyond all of that, right? And that's been one of the problems that I have also encountered with my immediate friends, family, and dear ones, where they've always told me that, why do you need to do this, right? Why is there such a tearing rush for you to go back home? Why is there such a need for you to step up all the time, right? It's not you who's supposed to do this, it's someone else. I said, but it's always meant to be a partnership, right? You don't enter into parenthood thinking that, okay, this is the role of the mother, this is the role of the father, and if this doesn't fall within this jurisdiction, I will not do it. That's not how it's supposed to be, right? You're supposed to be involved dads, you're supposed to be involved parents right from the word get go, right? You're supposed to do that. That's your job, right? So that's that. That's exactly the thing that I was concerned about when I was when I was talking to fathers, when I was talking to first time father, experienced fathers as well, that there's only so much that we can do, right? And I've always sort of told them that, don't try and put a barrier to what it is that you can achieve and what it is that you can do, right? There is more than enough for you to take up, in your role to parenting. and I spoke of this in the book, right? And this is something that I will use as brownie points for the rest of my life, right? I was the one who potty trained my kid. It's not the mother, right? So, and there's something that I tell proudly to all my friends, right? You would probably think that in that parenting evolution or in that parenting journey, right? You would think that it's the mother's job to do it. No, it's not. It's not. It can be practically anyone in that parenting relationship to take up that role and job, right? And I'm happy to have taken up that mantle of potty training my kid. It took some time, but we got there. And that to me was the biggest promotion ever in my life. I mean, it didn't matter the kind of promotions that I've scored in my professional life. That moment when my kid was potty trained became the highlight of my entire career, right? So, and these are things that you look forward to, as a parent and as a father, right? And you will not experience it unless you get right into it. So the more you try and alienate yourself as a father from the roles that have been typecasted for you, right? The more deeper that you fall into that pit of being a Fatherosaur, right? You don't want to be a Fatherosaur. You want to evolve, and you evolve with taking up such roles. I remember being told by all my friends, right? Diaper change karega to pata chalega kya hota hai. And these guys have not changed a single diaper the entire life, right?
That is actually very, very true, right?
They have not changed a single diaper the entire lives, and they talk about it as if it's the toughest thing to do, right? They have not taken one single step towards changing a diaper, and they talk about it as if they've understood the entire science and process of changing a diaper, right? And I said, I went back to them the day I changed the first diaper for my child. I realized this is easy, like the easiest thing there is, right? And I went back to them and told them that, you guys should really try and change it once to be able to see how easy it is, and that you've been fed a bunch of bullshit by whoever it is, right? You've been fed a bunch of bullshit that this is tough. Oh my God, you will not be able to do it. You should do it once for yourself and then come back to me and tell me how the process was.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things I've realized, right? There's so many things actually to unpack from what you said. There is a change that happens, and I think with every dad we've spoken to, it's been at a different time. For me, it kind of became very overwhelming right at the start, where I was like, holy crap, from tomorrow morning, when I wake up, it's not just me that I have to take care of. There's another human being I'm responsible for. And then it kind of just started spiraling through all other aspects, right? Because a lot of the decisions I was making was not anymore about just me. Like, I remember, like, for the most part of my 20s, I didn't really care about anything because it was only affecting me. Then I got married. It was my wife. So then it was, two of us. And now suddenly, when you have a third person who has no involvement, right? At least with your wife, your partner, there is some involvement, there's some discussion and all of that. With your kid, there's zero. So all of that just started dawning on me over a period of time. And then, I don't know, like for me, at least the thumb rule became very simple, is that, you know what, in 10 years or 15 years, when my son like understands a lot of things, if he asks me a question about something, can I give him a logical and clear answer about what I did or not? And if I'm going to give him an ambivalent answer or lie or say stuff, then at this point itself, I should check myself and not do something like that. Was that something similar that you experienced? Like just a complete change in your decision-making mindset that you had once you became a parent?
Everything about it actually. I think I spoke of this earlier as well, that suddenly, when you now get up in the morning as a parent, right? The first thing that you do is, think about how you're going to maneuver yourself the entire day, having a kid around you, right? Your habits are now going to change. You are going to now start taking decisions, thinking about them first and not putting yourself first. So that's a big step. As a parent, you brought someone into the world, right? And now you have that sole responsibility of making sure that that they are in proper shape, right? come what may, right? You got to look after them in whatever capacity that you can and make sure that they are completely fine all the time. And that's something that hit me, a couple of days later, when I was in the middle of things, taking care of duties, and I was one day up in the night trying to put her off to sleep. And that's when it hit me, right? I was sort of cribbing to myself about how I'm not getting enough sleep, how I'm being up in the middle of the night at odd hours to sort of pat her, to burp her, or to feed her, and not getting enough sleep, right? And that sort of sparked something in me, and I told myself that, when we were in college and we were working late in the night or starting late in the night or partying late in the night, even when we took up our first job and we were out most of the nights, we never cared about staying up late, right? And now suddenly it's become such a point for me to crib about, at this age, after having become a father, that I'm cribbing about staying up late in the night. When
and that's a half an hour extra, huh? Matlab, it's not even like 2 hours, 3 hours, half an hour.
Exactly. It's not much, and then we start cribbing about it so much that I'm not getting enough sleep, and that's when it dawned upon me that, whatever that I've experienced so far in life, whatever I've learned so far in life, it's all going to change now, right? And there's going to be new learning up for grabs now that I've become a father, right? And that's what made me happy about the fact that, there is new learning coming my way, and I should be more open and receptive towards it than just sit there and crib about it, right? And that's something that it's just not an experience that I had. It's an experience that my wife has had, as well. So it's common. I mean, fathers going through something, and then mothers also going through exactly the same thing, but in a different capacity. They have a lot of other things to take care of, as opposed to us. Their job is far more tougher than ours, hands down. But the whole experience that I had that night when I was cribbing to myself was a starting point in that journey of what to expect and what not to expect. That one night where I sort of cribbing to myself about staying up and not getting enough sleep, or will I get enough sleep or not, that was the one starting point in my journey to be able to figure out who I am going to be as a father from here on.
Wow. I'm sure that's the night that's forever etched in your memory.
I mean, for nights have a very different value and definition after you become a parent, right? What you used to be and what you are now. But Saheb, I want to take you on a very different tangent, which is and you sort of brought it in really nicely, and it makes you think. Like, at least I stopped and I just went to took a walk and I came back, which is like years from now, right? Like today, your kid, you're the son, the SUN son for your child, right? And she's going to keep orbiting around you, and you will try and find ways to give attention, but at the same time, you have other priorities as well. And you've also said that years later, when your child grows, she'll have her own set of friends and responsibilities and work and whatnot. And that is the time when it's going to sink in and say, I should have spent more time with my kid, right? And that really did hit me, right? Because, of course, I mean, we are working physically out there. I try and stay at home and do my work and try and spend as much time as well. But that emotion is so difficult. Like, you're preempting it already that it is going to happen. And my wife tells it to me all the time. Don't be an idiot. Don't have these kind of expectations that she's going to hang around us all the time. She's going to have her own set of, friends and responsibilities, and she's just going to leave, right? So you better bloody be emotionally strong about that, and don't you dare come to me cribbing. And I'm like, yeah, I get it, but I'm not sure if I'm ready for it right now, because when I see her, I'm like, where is she going? She's going to be with me, right?
Yeah.
And that statement just hits you. I was like, oh yes, it's happening. It is. I think everyone realizes it's happening, and just wanted to pick your brains on that when you wrote that, what were you thinking about the future when your child grows up, and what is it that you potentially could miss that, what you're doing right now with her?
I spoke about this in a couple of chapters actually, and this came from a trigger, from a personal incident that I had at home as well. And this was right in the middle of the pandemic as well. In 2020, when we were locked up in our homes and trying to find a way to balance work and home at the same time. And my daughter just randomly came up to me and said, "Let's color," right? And at that moment, I don't know, because I was so engrossed with what I was doing at work, I happened to just tell her, "No, we'll probably do it later." And then she made this sad face and she went back to her room with the colors in her hand and the coloring book in her hand. And she was absolutely devastated to hear that no from me. And within 10 minutes, I realized that I had probably made a boo boo, right? That I shouldn't have said no, no matter what the circumstances I was facing at work, no matter how busy I was at work, that work could have waited for 10 minutes. I mean, it's fine. I mean, she would have just happily sat down and colored with me for 10 minutes and she would have been on her way, right? She just wanted those 10 minutes from me, right? And I said to myself, if I can't give her those 10 minutes right now, will she be able to give me those 10 minutes later on when she grows up in life? Right? Will she throw the same logic at me that I'm throwing at her right now? That I'm busy with work, you come back later. Will she then throw the same logic at me later on when she grows up in life? That I'm hanging out with my friends, I'm in school, I'm going there, I'm doing this, right? Is she going to throw the same logic at me? That's when it, triggered something in me, and I said, you know what? Whatever request that come my way, if she wants to sit down and color with me, if she wants to just go down for a walk, let me just do that, even if it means sacrificing something on your professional front, missing out that one meeting, or postponing a certain meeting, pushing that one meeting to make sure that you spend some time with your daughter and your kid. I think that's something that triggered in me during the pandemic. That I said that this time that I'm going to spend is never going to come back. Right? So you got to find a way to make time. You got to make time happen. However you want to do it. You want to turn into a magician, take some time, do it.
Yeah.
But better do it. I mean, that's something that happened to me when I was dropping to her on the first day of school as well. And I felt at that moment, that she's going to be away from me, right, for 2 hours. And all my life that I've had with her, I haven't seen I haven't seen her away from me for even a couple of hours, barring those moments or hours that I was spending in office, right? She was always in front of me. I would always check on her, right? And now these are 2 hours that I'm not going to see her. These are 2 hours I'm not going to know what she's up to. These are 2 hours I'm not going to know how she's going to behave in school with friends, with aliens, in alien surroundings, right? And that really, made me jittery and nervous about, if I am, feeling this at this moment, imagine when she grows up and she has her own life, she has her own thinking, her own thought process, her own logic, and her own understanding of the world. Will she be there to give me time? And that's exactly what, triggered in me to write what I wrote in my notes. And glad that you brought it up. It's a point that's very close to my heart as well.
Yeah. And I think what's common, right, is because all three of us have very similar age kids and became dads within a year or two of each other. We've all experienced that at the same time, right? So I know exactly, because my son last year went to school for the first time, and it was an emotional moment. And I think I don't know, I'm not going to put it on a scale, but my wife and I were equally emotional about it.
My kid didn't cry at all. I was the one who was shedding tears, but not my kid. She just went right in as if, okay, finally my moment of freedom has come. Let me just go right in.
my kid did the same thing. She just ran, and I'm just waiting this bye. And I'm like, she didn't even look. She didn't even turn.
Yeah.
And it was so awkward because the receptionist, whoever was there, she just looks at me and says, "Gayi wo, chali gayi." I was like, I know, I can see, right? And I was like, so I just turned and I was like, okay, that's life then. I guess that's what kids today want, right? And in a way, I also as a parent, both my wife and I feel very proud of the fact that this is what independence looks like at a young age. And instead of being sad and morose about it, we started celebrating it. That, okay, this is great. This is, this is what we see for things to come in the future. And that's great, right? Because somewhere then perhaps we're doing a decent job, and she'll probably excel at what you. And we've seen kids, right, like clinging onto the pens and no, I will not go anywhere. You come with me. So in a way, it's a proud moment, but at the same time, it's very bittersweet. You know what I mean?
Yep, exactly. I've been there, experienced that, shed a few tears, and I won't say recover. There's still every time that I drop her to school, there is still that emotional moment. I don't know how it still kicks in that emotional moment in me, wherein I feel that is there a sense of detachment now coming along? Like, is she going to be detached from me because she's not going to be seeing me for 2-3 hours? Is she now going to have someone else in her social circles to talk to? Is she going to forget about me? So all these, I mean, yeah, as a parent, you always have this jealousy factor of your kid not spending enough time with you. I think now we are all in safe hands because our kids aren't that old yet. Once they get to that age of 10, 12, I think we'll get a little more anxious people than what we are right now.
I mean, I think we definitely will have to do a catch up before our kids, or maybe we'll do this dad support group before all our kids turn teenagers.
Yeah.
But you know, Saheb, it's been great talking to you so far, and I have one final question for you, and this is more a personal one than a dad one. Is, you know, a lot of my friends who are authors, a lot of people who I know are authors, draw parallel between, you know, being an author, writing a book, and getting a tattoo, right? You can't just get one, or you can't just write one book. So when can we expect your next book?
It's just too much pressure to answer that question. So, to be honest with you, Peter, when I started writing, Notes of a Fatherosaur, it was never meant to be a book, right? It was always meant to be available as notes in some form. I think the process of writing and turning this into a book happened much later. And this happened, I think, in the middle of 2021, around the peak of the second wave of COVID, right? When I felt like I was really vulnerable, right? It didn't matter how healthy I was or, what sort of lifestyle that I've had. If there was something out there that would get me, it would get me, right? And that's when I thought that I should really, speed things up in terms of my writing process. And I was being a little lazy up until that point to completing what I'd started. And that's when I really stepped on the gas. I said, what if something out there really gets me and I'm not around, right? I want to be able to leave something behind for my daughter when she grows up one day, to be able to pick up that piece of work of mine and say that, my dad wrote this, right? And for her to then understand from my eyes and from my perspective what fatherhood really meant to me, how it's changed me as a person, and how I am trying to spark a conversation with fathers at large to be able to be more vocal and be a little more expressive, about their journey as well. And I wanted her to take pride in that. So it really started from that place where I felt vulnerable as a person. My whole existence felt like that at that point in time, and I think we were all feeling exactly that at that same moment. So my initial plans were to not really publish this as a book, but to make it available in some form. And I'm happy I got it to a point where it's now available for people to read. I don't know how many copies will it sell or not sell. It's not a milestone that I'm gunning for, right? I'm only going to be happy with the fact that if the book reaches the right hands, and I will take pride in that fact, no matter how many hands they are, right? It just has to reach the right audience, the right person to pick that up and say that, hey, this guy and I have something in common. That's been the goal. And I don't know, maybe I'll try and document my experience as a father, from here on, and see if I want to turn that into a book later on. But that's still some time away. I have not given myself that objective yet to see another book through, or to write some more stuff on the subject of fatherhood. But I will continue to write on the subject of fatherhood in one form or the other, be it on my social media, on Instagram or on LinkedIn, where I continue to be active and I continue to talk about fatherhood and the experience and the joy that it is. right? So I'll continue to do that. Maybe not in the form of a book, but definitely in the form of whatever anecdotes or little nuggets of wisdom, if you want to call it that, through my social media presence.
And on that note, Saheb, why don't you tell our listeners where they can get your book, and you can procure a copy both digitally as well as physical.
Yeah, so you can get the copy on Amazon. It's available on Flipkart as well. If you are an international listener, you can get it on Amazon.com, Amazon.co.uk. It's listed over there. The books edition sadly are not out yet, so that will be out soon. But if you happen to follow me post this podcast, you will know more about it on my social media presence as well, on when the events are out.
Thank you so much, Saheb. And to everyone listening in, we will be having the various links in our show notes. So please feel free to go, and if you're a dad, you must get a copy of this book and read Saheb Sahani's notes on the Fatherosaur.
Thank you so much, Peter. Thanks, Nadir.
Thanks.
Great pleasure.
Thank you, Saheb.
And that was Saheb Sahani, first-time author, first-time dad, and I'm pretty sure he's going to add far more accolades to his name in the coming years. But it was such a great chat with Saheb, and I think that's one of the things I've noticed, Nadir, that when we speak to dads who've become dads around the same time as us, there's a complete different dynamic. You've noticed that?
Yes. When you say different dynamic, it's like people coming together who have something common, right? Especially when it comes to parenting, and we just kind of knew exactly where the conversation was going, or what were the points that were common to us in our fatherhood journey. And I really liked the fact that he said that fatherhood, like parenting, is actually an evolution, and we cannot be dinosaurs. We have to keep evolving and be part of this new age parenting.
Yeah, I think it's a great way to wrap up our Father's Month. I mean, we started out with Carrie Edwards, then we had Tuhin Paul as a guest from Menstrupedia. We had Roshan Abbas. And one thing I really enjoyed about talking to all four of them was, even though everyone's in different stages of their life, some have been parents for slightly longer than others, there was something that completely united all four of them. And, I want to thank all four of them for being part of Father's Month, taking time out and sharing their stories with Nadir and me and all of you, the listeners. And as always, we keep saying this, but if you, the listeners, want us to kind of cover a topic, or there's something interesting that you would like to share with us, maybe even be a guest on the podcast, you can always reach out to us at popsinapod@gmail.com. Check out our website, popsinapod.in.
Or you can search for Pops in a Pod on Instagram or Facebook, and we put up a lot of interesting content, trailers, short videos, just generally content. And if you like us, then hit share or comment, or just leave some love for us. And keep following us, because we come up with some very, very interesting content month on month. Until next time, see you guys soon.
Who knows, maybe Nadir and I will start taking part in the dance challenges online.
Oh boy, that's going to take a lot out of me. But yeah, sure, why not?
All right, so until next time, we'll see you guys then.